Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the personal rules for reading tag. This tag was created by Reading This Life, inspired by a video by Michael K. Vaughan. The interesting thing about this tag is that it is open source. Participants can add a question of their own to the tag, so it's an ever-growing tag that may end up being split apart or just going until it's an massive tag. Anyway, I was tagged by Micah Cummins, so I will leave links to Michael K. Vaughan, Reading This Life, and Micah Cummins in the show notes down below, along with the questions, including my contribution. So here are the prompts. Prompt number 1. Do you strive to read every day? If yes, do you do anything different or special to make time within your day? If no, why not? So I read every day. During the work week, Monday through Friday, my reading is curtailed to largely mid-afternoon. During the weekends, I try to read pretty much the whole day. And I basically always make the time to read. So, yeah. Okay, prompt number 2. Do you always stay within your favorite genres, or do you experiment with reading different genres and subgenres? I try to read as diversely as I can. Although that does sometimes get me into some trouble, which I will get to in a later question. I think actually the next question. So my favorite genre of fiction is science fiction and fantasy, but I also read literary fiction, for lack of a better word. Although I don't always get on with literary fiction, it's a very rare thing that I actually do enjoy what I read from that. I also sometimes will read other genre fiction, mysteries, thrillers, horror, although not always. As far as nonfiction is concerned, obviously, looking at the bookcases behind me, I have fallen head over heels in love with history over the last few years. I try to read in other genres of nonfiction, although I don't necessarily really collect it because I'm looking over at my paltry general nonfiction shelves. And then, of course, also I've fallen in love with manga. So I try to read as diversely as possible, although I think it typically, I tend to narrow what I read despite my ambitions, if that makes any sense at all. Question number 3, or prompt number 3. Do you DNF, do not finish, or did not finish? If yes, what was the last book you DNF'd? And the reasonings why. If your answer is no, then what drives you to finish the books? So I DNF, or I call it bailing, and I bail rather heavily. This year has been a Titanic year for bailing. It's almost 70 books by now. The last book I bailed on was Life and Times of Michael K. by J.M. Coetzee, which was early last week. I bailed on the book because, well, I read it because, I was a Booker winner. It was also published in my birth year, and I've been meaning to read J.M. Coetzee for a while. But the writing was just, it was bad and boring, and I was thinking to myself as I was reading it, how did this win the Booker? It's terrible. So I bailed. Prompt number 4. Do you like to read challenging books? If yes, what draws you to them? If no, why do you avoid them? Well, I guess the question is what do you mean by challenging books? Because, I mean, that can mean an awful lot of things for an awful lot of people. I do try to read challenging books, particularly nonfiction, history, mostly, but also I would like science books, fiction occasionally, although I don't really get on well with super depressing or torture porn type books. Prompt number 5. Now, so the first 4 prompts were created by reading this live. From here on out, the questions are have been added to by the various respondents to this tag. Greg of Another Bibliophile Reads, I believe, asks, do you read books that have been banned by local authorities? I haven't really looked into whether or not the local school district or school districts have gotten into the book banning craze that a number of school districts and politicians and psychopaths, right-wing psychopaths, have gotten into in Texas over the last year or so. I'm pretty sure, even though I did bail on it, I think Beloved has been challenged quite a bit. I have read Catcher in the Rye, which I'm pretty sure has been challenged. I'm not entirely sure who all else I have has been challenged. But yeah, I do read books that have been challenged or banned, although specifics I can't tell you because I haven't really looked into those lists. Yeah, okay, moving on to prompt number 6, CriminOlly's question. Do you read books by authors whose views you disagree with? I do, although sometimes if those views kind of wreck the book, whether or not I am interested in it or not, can sometimes lead to a bail. But I do like to read a wide array of views. Okay, now we're moving on to Steve Donoghue, who has 2 questions. Steve Donoghue, question number 1. Do you clear your mind of preconceptions and biases before you start a new book, or do you go in with axes to grind? I try to go into a book with an open mind. There's every possibility that I will love it, and I'm rather hoping I will love it. And there's always the possibility that I will hate it, whether or not there's an extra grind or what. Steve's second question. Do you recommend books if you end up really liking them? And if so, what form does that recommendation take? I think I do recommend books that I really like. Obviously, a lot of my recommendations I make here on YouTube on my BookTube channel. And sometimes I will, if I, on those rare occasions when I'm talking to people about books, I might kind of make a recommendation on that, which I think is actually the next question, which comes from Bill Rutenberg. And I think he's got 2 questions. So Bill Rutenberg, question number 1. What was the last book you recommended? Was there a specific reason for that book? Do people come to you regularly for book recommendations? So the last book I recommended was The Burnt Palace by Stephen Dobbins, and I recommended it to my mom. And the special reason why I recommended The Burnt Palace to my mom was that it's a thriller, and it's more or less realistic. And I thought maybe my mom would like it, and she was she ran out of books from my aunt's, so she's kind of been a bit bored lately. So I thought maybe I can recommend some of the books I have on my modern and contemporary fiction shelves. What little there are of them. I mean, the thing about me and my mom is that we have very different tastes. My mom tends to prefer thrillers, romance, to a degree, the kind of realistic fiction that is maybe termed chick lit, which I don't read all that much of. So if there's a chance that some of the books that I might have or I collected might be ones that she likes, then I'll recommend it to her. But like, she doesn't like science fiction and fantasy. She doesn't like nonfiction all that much. So yeah, it's very rare that I recommend a book to her that she enjoys. Although I've had some interesting successes when I've just randomly pulled books off of the shelves at the library. And do people come to me regularly for book recommendations? No. Bill's second question. What book have you had the most success in recommending? I couldn't tell you. Okay, now we end with Micah's question. Do you take notes or annotate while you read? If so, what form does it take? I don't take notes or annotate in my books. That drives me crazy. When I have taken notes in my books, which was largely when I was a student, I would write them down on note cards. But I haven't done that in years. So now that wraps up this batch of questions. So I will add my own question. So, how many books are in your library, and how do you organize your personal collection? So I have about 1,170. Well, it'll be much more than that because I haven't added my the books I'll be hauling probably on Friday yet. So it's more than this, but from the last time I added books to my book catalog, it was 1179. So I should have almost 1,200 books now. And I'll probably announce that when I do weekly reads, if I remember. And I have my books organized largely by genre. My cookbooks are in the living room. My art and writing books are in my desk. In the hall is my classics, canonical, and modern contemporary fiction, poetry, drama. This side of the hall of my bedroom here is science fiction and fantasy. Here's the manga bookcase. I have my paltry general genre fiction and general nonfiction on a shelf above my bed. My headboard bookcase has become sort of an annex to science fiction and fantasy because I moved them from here. And then behind me is the history wall. So that's how I organize my personal collection. So in your booktube, if you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow with another video. I don't know, maybe another tag video, because there have been some tags coming out lately. Although I might take tomorrow off because I might decide to do an errand tomorrow instead of waiting until Thursday or Friday. So we'll see how that goes. And then Thursday will be another tag for sure. and then Friday will be a book haul and weekly read. So until then, BookTube, thank you. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.